Hello everybody, welcome back to Laptop Seniors. Today it's our final segment on Boquete. This is number 8 in our video series on Boquete specifically. If you're new to the channel and you are searching on YouTube and you just came across this because you want to know about the pluses and minuses, the good things and the bad things about Boquete, we have 7 other videos in this series that will go into way more depth of some of the things that we're talking about here, and you'll see a lot more because this video is basically us just going through the good stuff and the bad stuff. Okay, so
just a bit of an overview of our entire impression of Boquete.
Yeah, so let's start with the good stuff and then we'll go into the not so good stuff. And there's not a whole lot of that actually, which is why Boquete is such a huge retirement haven. But the number one thing I would say pretty much that everybody goes there for, what would you say that is?
Definitely the weather.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Boquete has a very temperate climate, one of the few places in the world where the temperature really only varies about 10 degrees Fahrenheit, morning to night, day after day after day, all year round. It really does not change very much. Now you do have the dry season and wet season, which locally we just call it the wet season and the windy season. So you can learn a little bit more about the climate, but also the microclimates all over Panama. You basically can decide on the climate you'd like to live in and choose which area, even just around Boquete itself, which area there is going to have the climate that you'd like.
Yeah, basically, I think it's for every 10-minute drive south toward David, which looks like the word David, but in Spanish it's David, you drop like 3 degrees. So if it's 85 in Boquete, you drive 10 miles down south, it's going to be all 82, and then it's going to be
okay, it's backwards.
So on and so forth.
No, it gets warmer towards David.
You're right. Sorry. We could edit that, but I'm going to leave it in because it's funny. All right, so number 2, this is the second big thing, and it's pretty much all of Panama, but it's for sure Boquete, and it's safe. It's safety. You don't really have to worry about crime. Definitely don't have to worry about, somebody robbing you, at gunpoint or any of that type of stuff. There's a little petty crime here and there, but for the most part, it's kind of non-existent. It's a really safe area, as is Panama, actually. It's a very safe country.
I definitely agree with that. I never, in any of the cities or countryside, never felt unsafe in Panama anywhere. So, I mean, I've always got this big guy with me, and I'm sure you scare everybody away.
Yeah. That usually bothers me. Another thing is lower prices in Boquete, and also that would be across Panama. It's lower prices than the US or Canada or Western Europe. Certainly there's places in Eastern Europe which would be comparable in pricing, and other places, certainly in the Far East like Thailand, Malaysia, and whatever. So again, if you're new to the channel and you're thinking about retiring somewhere, Panama has pretty much everything that you'd ever want to buy there, especially food, and it's going to be at a lower price than if you're living in the US or Canada or most countries in Western Europe. We just returned from Portugal, and Portugal is cheaper than North America for sure, but it's not cheaper than Panama. So, bear that in mind.
And when you're talking about prices, particularly in groceries, you can almost set your budget for that as well. I mean, just like choosing your climate, you can choose your budget and shop accordingly, because there are local markets, there are roadside stands, there are farmers markets, there are supermarkets. Some are geared to expats and the prices tend to be a little higher, but then they may offer things that you really want to have that other more local markets may not carry. Mm-hmm. So you can choose your budget for food shopping as well.
Yeah.
And you can get mostly everything. I mean, I'm gluten-free and I'm always looking for good, healthy foods, organics, everything.
What a pain.
I am a pain.
Especially in a restaurant. Oh my God, brutal. Anyway.
But I was pleasantly surprised at what I could find shopping in the markets, all of the markets in Boquete.
Yeah. A lot of the people in Boquete and in Panama in general, they're really friendly and they're very helpful. And if you're trying to speak super broken Spanish, they'll be smiling and hanging in like, come on, spit it out, come on. They're really, really good. And because of that, it's easy to make friends. You know, if you can speak a little bit, you're going to have a decent time with locals. And then there's the expats, of which you are going to find in Boquete lots of expats. Like-minded people, and that's a big one, which you'll find expats all over the world. They will be thinking like you, because if you're thinking about leaving North America or Europe or whatever, and you want to travel and you want to go somewhere else, you're going to pick up and go. They've already done it. That's why they're there, and they are very much the same mindset. And it's really easy to, hit a rapport with them and pick up friends.
Of all the places we traveled around in Panama, one of the easiest places to make friends and get into an expat community there was in Boquete. We immediately were able to find, was it on a website? No.
You probably
social media.
Yeah, or somebody told us about it. We were running into, probably the person at the Airbnb mentioned it. He did, yeah.
Yes.
We were staying in an Airbnb.
The person hosting our Airbnb did tell us about one of the expat get-togethers, which was, I think, the first night we were there, which was great because we connected with a group of people then.
It was a happy hour.
And then we heard about the next get-together, then we heard about the Monday night prime rib special, and it just goes on and on. But we definitely found that the expats were very welcoming. It's like they were very happy to have fresh blood in the mix.
Yeah. And we did a bunch of things with those people, like really quickly, like within a couple days we're boom, boom, boom. Every 2 or 3 days we're, hanging out with the same people. I mean, that's rare. I mean, if you're at home, you're never going to be able to do that. But again, it's easier when you're on the road. Oddly enough, you'd think it would be harder, but it's not.
Yeah.
There's lots of outdoor activities that are specific to Boquete, hiking in the mountains and going to see the waterfalls and the coffee plantations and a whole bunch of other things. So you're not ever really going to be hard pressed to figure out what to do, something, if you're an outdoors person. And also if you're not an outdoors person, there's a lot of expats, a lot of people around that you can do stuff with for activities.
Right, because the geography is gorgeous and it lends itself to hiking, walking, doing your tours, like obviously the coffee plantation tours, which are abundant. Mm-hmm. Just being in nature out there is absolutely gorgeous, and you may already know, but the river runs right through or alongside of Boquete and offers so much beautiful scenery. But the other thing is, I also heard that there were art workshop groups getting together. So it's not just for the outdoorsy type people. There's all kinds of people getting together to enjoy their own hobbies.
It is a bit of an art colony there too. It reminds me a little bit of Woodstock. Actually, it has a little bit of that same sort of feel, which is ultra cool.
Right, and of course the jazz festival goes on there, so there's the music, and there were a lot of places that we went for, lunches, dinners, whatever, that were playing live music. So we really enjoyed that there.
If you're retired, a big thing is eating out, because you spent your entire life cooking for the family, cooking for the kids, cooking for other people, trying to, make meals every single night to save money so you can retire. And when you get there, the big thing, if you can afford it, is to eat out more. So you don't have to clean up and, and all of that sort of stuff. And you don't have to cook, and you can just go out and enjoy life. Boquete is perfect for that.
It sure is, because there is a huge number of restaurants. Somebody, I think, said there were 70 restaurants now in Boquete. I didn't verify that number, but that's an awful lot of restaurants.
It feels like it. It really does, yeah.
How many times, actually, were you busy cooking meals for the family? I'm just curious about.
Well, some. I cook some.
Okay. Just a question.
Yes. Thank you. moving on. So one of the other good things is for tipping is only 10%, okay? And that's like a hard and fast rule. I mean, certainly you can go over it, but as you'll see on one of our other videos in this series, it actually sort of messes up the economy for locals. They tip 10, you should tip 10, and 10 is an easy number, and it's a good number if you're going to tip. It isn't like, when we're back in Canada, it's like, people yell at you if you don't do 20%. I'm sort of kidding, but not totally kidding.
Well, you'll get the look.
Yeah, for sure you get the look like, oh my God, only 20%. How dare you, get out. Don't ever come back, you heathen. Really, it's like, dude. Anyway.
But some people in Panama basically just say rounding up. They don't even say 10%. That rounding up is normal, but for us, we think, 10% is at the least we can do.
Yeah, the rounding up seems to be a misnomer. It appears to be 10. You might round up close to 10, but 10 is it. One of the things that I want to point out here, and this is sort of a 50-50, it's the good part and the bad part. The restaurants that you see, a lot of times people will be talking with YouTube videos, I've seen it a ton of times before we ever came here, is that, the restaurants are really cheap. Oh my God, look at this. You can go out for dinner and, the two of you will be, with a glass of wine, it'll be $12, $13, $14. Again, you can do that, but that is not the norm. The brunt of restaurants are not that. They are definitely more expensive. They're closer to North American rates, but I would say they're, as a frame of reference, maybe it's like a typical restaurant in Florida, but maybe knock that down by 20%. So maybe in Florida it might be $45 there. It's like maybe 36, maybe. It's not the 12. That's for sure.
But
although you can find those.
those.
You can find them.
You can, definitely. I mean, if your budget requires you to have a $10 meal, or sometimes even less, you can find that. You may just not have the choice of all the different restaurants and all the things they offer.
Yeah, you're going to be eating a hamburger and fries, and also
chicken and rice,
ropo viejo, and things like that. Totally fine, tasty too, really good. But just before you come, or if you're thinking about going from some other city in Panama and moving out to Boquete, the restaurant. I found that the restaurant prices in Boquete were a little higher than other parts of Panama, a little bit, okay, not a lot, but again, the brunt weren't that super cheap that, you always see people touting on YouTube. Now, one thing that goes along with that, so okay, that was sort of the downside, here comes the plus. If you have the pensionado visa, the retirement visa, the jubilado visa, the retirement person visa,
senior discount, basically.
You're going to knock off 25% off your bill. So all of a sudden, what was I just talking? I'm trying to do the math here again in my head. So the $45 bill in Florida that became $36, $37 in Panama, all of a sudden now drops by another 25%, and now you're down to $28 range or $29 range. So that is a major plus for eating out.
One other thing I might add about eating out is that you really want to be driving around, touring the area to see the restaurants, or going on social media, because most of the restaurants there do not have a website, where, in the US, I think most do, and so many of them are chains, and of course they do. So you can see the restaurant, you can see pictures, you can look at the menu and all those things. So most of them do not. I actually find restaurants more on Google Maps, actually, than looking for websites. Yeah.
Google Maps, Facebook, Instagram, that's where they typically are. And that's really something, if you travel all over the world, you find that everywhere, really. A lot of restaurants lean into that direction versus their own website. Let's move to housing. If you go to Boquete, you got to live somewhere, and you don't want to be homeless.
And you definitely want to consider a longer-term rental versus a short-term. Vacation rentals can be quite pricey, as they are in so many places now since COVID. all those prices went up. But long-term rentals can be very affordable.
Yeah, I found they sort of rock you. It's not out of the realm to have just a kind of okay place for $1,000 a week. So you're doing $4,000 a month, for 4 weeks in Airbnbs, where probably renting for a month somewhere, if you had like a 3 or 4 month stretch or a year stretch, you could be paying anywhere from $550, $650, $750, somewhere in that range, up to maybe $1,200, and be okay for the whole month versus the $4,000 because it's $1,000 a week. So, that was a shocker when we first went. It was like, wow, these prices are high.
Right, but you can't get a rental like that for a month. It's going to be, I think, at least 6 months, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can hunt around, but I mean, certainly, I think for all Airbnbs, it happened this way when we were in Portugal and pretty much everywhere. If you want a week, there's one price. If you want 2 weeks, there's a little bit of a discount sometimes. If you want to take the whole month, all of a sudden everything drops down considerably. And so then if you average it out, your 1,000 becomes 750 maybe. That's kind of the way it typically works in most places of the world. It worked less like that in Boquete because the price is held. I think, especially when you're in the dry season, Jan, Feb, March, April. It's when people, it's cold in North America and people want to go somewhere warm. Huge influx of people coming in. And it's like, come on, let's rock these people. And they do.
And for those of you who have already made your decision that you want to live in Boquete or the area around it, we highly recommend that you rent first. Many people want to go and jump into buying when they see that perfect place. But what we've been told over and over and over again is that people typically move 2 to 3 times before they find their perfect place in Panama. So it may be in different areas around Boquete because that's what we're talking about, or it could be different areas of Panama in general.
Yeah, when we first went to Boquete 12, 13 years ago, we didn't like it there. It was, we came, I don't think we were in rainy season, but we were there a week. We just happened to hit a week where it was sort of raining, and it doesn't rain the whole day, but it was raining a little bit. It was very, very misty. It was almost like you were in a sauna sort of feel to, looking out. So everything just felt a little wet, and it was kind of cold.
But
we just didn't like the city.
But we were also staying up the mountain a little bit, where it's sort of rainforest. So it does tend to be a little misty up there, even if it's not a rainy day. So
yeah, but the point being, for that is that our impression was that this isn't for us. When we went back again, it was like, hey, you know what? We really liked it. It was sunny and all that sort of stuff. Met a lot of people. It was just a totally different environment. That's why people move 2, 3, 4 times to different towns and even different areas of even the same town because you just get a different feel. So it's not wise to buy right out of the gate. The other big thing if you buy, because this seems to hold true across Panama, is that, and this is a guess on my part why, but I got a feeling that expats tend to buy things that are a little bit more expensive or a lot more expensive than locals, in more numbers, than locals would be buying. So when they try to sell, there's less people that's going to fit that. You have to pretty much hit another expat. Those are the odds. So therefore, you go, I need to sell our house. Well, that might be 2, 3, 4 years before you get a buyer. Buying homes.
We've heard that.
Yeah, it can be great because you're on the other side of that equation. Somebody wants to get rid of their place and it's been up for sale for 3 years. You got bargaining power, but if you're on the selling end, not so much. One of the other things that definitely would be something to consider if you're going to be looking for rentals, but for sure if you're going to be buying a house. We were staying in an Airbnb and it was in Upper Jaramillo, so it's up on the mountain, okay? And the roads, they're not like this. The roads tend to be like this. And they'll come around, the road will kind of come around the mountain. And the owner of the Airbnb, he was great. He was explaining so many different things to us that he goes, when they first bought the house, they literally in rainy season had like a river, like pretty much coming down right by their home, because it would come around the curve, come down the road, and that's where there would be a bit of a drop off, and it would then start rolling down the hill. But when it's rolling down the hill, it's rolling right at their home. So he had to spend a pretty fair amount of money to kind of put a big ditch thing in to catch it, and also get the town or somebody in the government to actually help move that road and tilt it so that the water would keep running and down the road by his house, and not come down right at his house. So that was a big thing. It's like, whoa, that would be freaky to me.
Just getting those ditches and the drainage running the right way is huge. I mean, we have seen, well, first of all, ditches. Yeah, there are some really big, deep ditches in some areas, especially like when you're on the mountains.
They're like this, and they're maybe this wide. Like if you get a car tire in there, you need to get a tow thing to pick your car up.
Yeah, you don't want to be going off the road.
Yeah.
So definitely some big ditches, and some areas where you could see that the water ran down where it shouldn't be, and they've eroded like big, huge
Another
holes.
thing, that we've been told, like during rainy season, at times there are portions of, and we didn't see any because we weren't riding through there, and we were also there in dry season when we came back this time, that there are areas of Alto Boquete, which is
south of Boquete.
Yeah, but when you come out of Boquete and you go up that windy hill that we have on one of the videos, now you're sort of up on top of, before you go down into the valley where the Boquete is, where the town is, that the water sort of puddles up. But evidently it's not just little puddles, it's like, it's there, and it can cause problems. Mud where you're parking your car, you're maybe walking in water this deep around your house. It's that kind of stuff before it finally recedes into the ground. So that evidently is a problem in some areas. I'm not sure where in Alto Boquete, but you'd definitely want to be asking that question if you're dealing with a realtor
for a rental or a purchase.
Yeah. Of course, you're going to have to go shopping, and there's lots of grocery stores. They tend to be a little bit smaller, although there's a couple big ones that are right in the town of Boquete. We found that in Alto Boquete on the main highway toward David, not very far from when you come up out of Boquete and you go, up the hill a little bit, and you get on the flat surfaces going toward the David, there's a really neat grocery store. It's on the right-hand side, sort of in like a little tiny little strip mall, if you will, and it was big inside. It had way more variety than most things.
It was kind of a department store too. Like in the back, it had all kinds of different things, not just food.
Yeah. So that's groceries. So you'll find a lot of groceries. But if you don't, David is only an hour's drive away, and it's an easy hour drive. And you can go down there, and there's Costco type stores there, and everything that you could ever. Big malls. I noticed just in general, and then in David as you drive in, a mall comes up on the right, and then when you get sort of right to David, there's another mall on the left. But the malls are big in Panama. Panama has big malls, like big malls. Yeah. So you can find pretty much anything you want. You just gotta hunt for it in the malls.
Yeah, and in Boquete itself, I can think of one shop that I just sort of wandered into, and I was stunned. It didn't look that big from the outside, but once I walked in, it just went on and on and on, and it had clothing and shoes and all different kinds of things. So that's right in town.
Yeah, so even though it's a small town, I guess what we're trying to get at, you'll be able to find any kind of grocery or other dry good type things, however you want to call it, either in Boquete or by heading down to David, or by the old standby Amazon. They do deliver into Panama and Boquete. Let me switch gears just a little bit. And one of the things, this is if you're an American, if you pay U.S. taxes, and if you're a U.S. citizen, because if you're a U.S. citizen, I'm going to do an entire tax video about this, but I'm just going to touch on this just a little bit because it comes up with living in Boquete. If you're a U.S. citizen, you have to file a U.S. tax no matter where you live in the world. You're locked into that for your life. That's the super downside of being an American. There's a lot of upsides to being an American. That is a major downside. There's only 2 countries in the entire world that does it. It's the United States and I think it's Athria, or I forget how it's pronounced. Basically, it's the U.S. and a dictatorship. They're the only two countries that force its citizens to file taxes. Usually, you will not have to pay taxes, but just going through it is a super pain. And most accountants in the U.S. don't want to do it. They don't know how to do it. It's like, oh, credits for a different country. No, go somewhere else.
And so, don't make the mistake of not filing just because you think you're not going to owe anything, because that is a mistake.
Yeah. So, and I'll go through that in a separate video because it's something that every American who lives outside the country should know. And there's some specific things about that. And I will definitely go through them because, over time I sort of became an expert in this, even though I'm not an accountant. But one of the good things is there's a thing called the foreign earned exclusion, foreign earned income exclusion. So basically what it means is if you had a job in Panama or if you started a business and you were making money, it's earned income. It's not a pension. It's not, that kind of income. You've earned it in some way. That's the key word.
So kind of like income from YouTube?
That's a good question. You would want, no, really, you would want to ask an accountant who's used to doing this. But you get $120,000 credit to knock off your tax bill. So if you made $100,000, let's just say on YouTube, if that was the case, if that qualifies, that for Panama, that wouldn't count at all because it's income from out of the country. That's Panama's rules. If you have income that comes from out of the country, you did not earn it in Panama, it's like you didn't make anything. They don't care. And for the U.S., because you're living out of the country as a U.S. citizen, the first $120,000 of earned income doesn't count either. So, it's pretty sweet if you can sort of manage to get in between both of those, that you can actually make up to $120,000 and just whoosh, right in the pocket.
Wow.
Come on, boom.
We better slow our channel down.
Yeah, we're a long way from that thing.
Just kidding.
Oh my God, yeah. So we were talking about the ride to David a little earlier. If you wanted to go shopping down there, just to let you know, it's a pretty easy ride to get to David. It's just sort of a straight shot on a really good highway.
Yeah. But we think it's a great idea to be using Waze as you're driving. Not everybody has a great navigator like Pat does.
Yeah. That holds for pretty much going to any foreign country you'll find, or even a foreign city. If you've never been to Minneapolis and you typically live in Des Moines, Iowa, when you get there, you're not going to know where everything is, and traffic's going to be flying all around you, which is this person going to cut me off? I don't want to look at the sign because I want to look at the person on the road. It's good to have a navigator who's going through Waze or Google Maps. Or there's another one that we use is SciJect. SciJect, you don't need data because it will store the maps of wherever you're going on your phone forever.
And Google can do that
Yeah,
too
it
if you
can.
download a map for a certain area.
Yeah, but Google, I think it's 30 days and then it doesn't work anymore. Where the SciJect app, it holds it there until you erase it or you upgrade it. They just keep giving you, good, upgrades. However, it's not up to the minute like Waze. Waze is the good one for sure.
And when the speed changes, which it does in Panama,
Yeah.
right out of the blue, Waze is not perfect at keeping up with those spots that the speeds change, but it does a fairly good job. So you really need to be mindful of what the speed is in whatever area you're driving.
And it does tell you where the police are. The police, you'll see police on motorcycles sitting by the side of the road, not so many with police cars, and usually they're actually trucks. And
Usually they're under the overpasses, just a little heads up there.
But when you see the police, say you hit one right this minute, it's not out of the realm to see another one 10 minutes down the road, and then another 10 minutes, and another 10 minutes, and another 10 minutes. I think it's like a make work project for you. They want, they want to employ the people in the country. So it's like you don't need a whole car. You just put them on a motorcycle, have the person go out there and give speeding tickets if that's what comes up, or check licenses. There's a lot of checking of licenses. If you're in compliance with rental cars, if you're renting a car from out of the country. We did that in another video, so I'm not going to go into it here. But anyway, suffice to say there's a lot of police. Also about David, you can fly into David instead of Panama City. That's sort of a plus. Where we flew into Panama City and then had to drive across the country because we wanted to. But when you're going back and you live in Boquete, you would just fly into David and just drive home, basically. You'd leave your car in David at the airport and then fly there and then drive home. Way easier than trying to traipse across the country from Panama City.
One last thing. I'm sure all of you know, as we are very aware of the demonstrations that have been going on in Panama. That could definitely hinder your passage getting from Panama City to Boquete when that's going on.
Or maybe even David to Boquete, because it's hit and miss where they're going to actually occur. We've seen a lot of YouTube videos, seen some other videos with Jackie, with Panama relocation tours. We've seen some videos with I Go Panama and other things. And the takeaway of that is, for the demonstrations, that even though 2 people have been shot, an American shot 2 people.
Terrible tragedy.
Other than that, though, it's not like a typical demonstration like went on in Portland or Seattle or Minneapolis or St. Louis or Chicago, where people are, putting cars on fire and buildings on fire and wrecking people, and there's hundreds of thousands of people out and they're wrecking things and robbing and all that stuff. That is not the demonstration. The demonstrations are peaceful, they're friendly, they have a sort of a happy tone, if you will. It's a bit of sort of a party atmosphere. I've seen it described that way when one guy was doing it and he was on his balcony and he had a camera zooming down on him and you could see the people smiling and they're just walking, waving flags. A demonstration in Panama, again, other than the 2 getting shot by an American, not a local, had nothing to do with local people. It's not how they act. Basically, it's their way of notifying the government, getting their attention. Hey, we're going to close these roads. We're going to make it difficult for people to get around. We're going to make deliveries of stuff a little harder. We want to get the attention of the government that we think there's a problem that you need to fix. That's kind of the way the demonstrations are. They're not like people flipping out and wrecking stuff. It's just not the same.
And I think the government answered that demonstration quite appropriately. Maybe not as quickly as they could have, but going with a referendum and letting the people decide, that's a very democratic society, if you ask me.
Yeah, now there appears to be another angle of that where the original, it was a mine, if you're unaware. There was a mine that got given a license to a mine for copper, and I guess they sort of
Canadian mine.
Yeah, Canadian mine.
They Canadian owned.
Yeah, they sort of strip mine in order to get at the copper, with big holes in the ground, that kind of stuff. And I guess maybe it was a little iffy as to how that contract was ever gotten in the first place. They stopped all other ones. That would be the referendum type thing. There will be no more, but they didn't kill that one as of yet. But I guess it's going up before the Panamanian Supreme Court, and if they knock it down, then the contract is void, and that's the end of it. And that's probably what will happen, because I think from a financial point of view, if the government broke the contract, they'd have to pay the Canadian company a lot of money. But if the Supreme Court killed the contract as being illegal, no money would have to be paid. That's kind of the way laws work around the world for a lot of things. It's a good way for a government who makes a mistake to get out of something without paying. So my guess is that's probably the way it's going to go, but I'm no lawyer, just like I'm no accountant. Okay. Now comes the downsides. There's only a few, and they're not really big deals, but they are there. If you fly into David or Panama City, you won't have a phone and you won't have data. A lot of people now are using eSIMs. I just kind of want to throw this out to you. I bought an eSIM when we landed in Panama City. It was from Airlo. I'll put the name on the screen, Airlo, and hopefully they're watching this. It didn't work. And I did everything correctly because I'm pretty from a tech point of view, I think you'll agree. I could be one of those guys at the Apple store.
Our friends call Pat tech support.
Yeah. So even though I'm old, I can, and I tried every possible thing and it just would not work in Panama. Even though, it was supposed to, it was only $10, wasn't the end of the world. When we went to Portugal, I got a different kind of SIM. It was Allo SIM, similar names, but different, Allo SIM, and that worked fine, totally good. Set it up at the airport, good to go. So, you might have to deal with that.
It's a bit of hit and miss.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to be paying big rates for your U.S. carrier like Verizon or a Canadian carrier like Bell or Rogers, because you're now roaming, at, I don't know, 10, 15 bucks a day, as opposed to 10 bucks for the month, with 5 gig of data.
The biggest downside that I saw with Boquete was definitely the lack of walkability in many places by the road. Sidewalks didn't really exist in most of the roadways, and even where they did, sometimes you would hit like a car park area and you'd have to go around it, or there would be like holes or ditches on the side of the road, or the walk that would be there would be either very slanted or quite broken. You just couldn't count on it. So anybody who has mobility issues could have quite a problem getting around in Boquete.
Yeah, and one of the things that I just thought it was kind of odd, I'll throw it out there. There's a lot of walking in Panama, even though of what she's saying about the sidewalks and things, but they tend to be walking on the road, and we did a bunch of videos where we're out on the back roads and on roads. At night, you could be going along and all of a sudden, boom, there'll be somebody there in front of you. And they're hard to see. So that's one thing you have to kind of worry about because, again, no sidewalks, they're walking, on the side of the road. One of the things that was really odd wasn't so much Boquete, but it's just one of those weird things to see. And we saw a lot of them when we were out like in Penanome and Chitre and other places. You'll see people walking along the side of the road. Guys, you'll see women walking too, but the guys won't have this. They'll be walking with a machete in their head. They're literally, it won't be like a sword in the thing. They'll literally be walking with it. They'll just be walking along, and the machete, and they're big, long machetes, and I don't really know why that is, but I mean, we probably saw 10 to 12. If we saw one, and it was just interesting.
Maybe they're on their way to work in the fields.
Well, it could be, or an animal. Again, they're on country roads, and an animal could come out.
They
Who
really
knows?
did not look aggressive at all.
No. It's totally
we didn't
safe.
take it as a threat, but it was interesting.
Yeah, maybe it's kind of like a high five, except you do it like clang, dude, boom.
Sword fight.
Yeah, and they go on. But anyway, it's funny when you encounter it. So if you do encounter it, don't freak out like, oh my God, he's got a machete. It's just, it is what it is.
One other thing is around Boquete, you probably find that you would need a car.
Yeah, for sure.
And the town itself, if you live in town or even via Escondido is right there, just off the town.
Walkable, definitely walkable.
But if you live further up the river in Valle Escondido, that's still a pretty fair walk just to get out of your community before you even go to the town. Also in the mountains, definitely you want to be fit if you're walking up and down into a home or a rental in the mountains. But chances are it might be just a little bit too far to be walkable. So whether you're visiting, going into rent, or whether you're living there, unless you're living right in the core of the town, you probably want to have a car.
Yeah, and we're talking for retirees here. Like you do see, even up in Jaramillo, when we were up pretty high there's there's people who live there, but they're young. You know, they're walking down the road. No machete, but they're walking up and down day and night and going to work or whatever, but they tend to be younger. You know, they're not 65, 68, 70 years old, 75 or, that kind of thing. Traipsing down 4 miles down down some pretty steep hills.
If you've stuck with us through this whole video, thank you. Thumbs up to you. And if you don't mind, if you liked it, please share that thumbs up back to us. Subscribe and click that bell so you'll be notified of new videos as they drop. It also makes our videos easier for others to find when you subscribe and like and, all those things. So again, thanks for being with us. Come back and see us again soon. Bye for now.